Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Immigration is one of the top issues in the November U.S. presidential election. Will there be mass deportations of undocumented immigrants? The U.S. Special Envoy for Sudan says there's little sign that the 16-month war between the army and the Rapid Support Forces will end anytime soon. And international aid organizations in Sudan say many civilians are facing their worst ever hunger crisis. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in the United States, where immigration is one of the top issues in the upcoming U.S. election. Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris is campaigning on her achievements as a prosecutor, while Republican former President Donald Trump is blasting the current administration's record and promises mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. The U.S. immigration reporter Elaine Barrows reports.
On the campaign trail, Vice President Kamala Harris highlights her background as a prosecutor, district attorney, and California Attorney General.
I walked underground tunnels between the United States and Mexico on that border with law enforcement officers. I went after transnational gangs, drug cartels, and human traffickers that came into our country illegally. I prosecuted them in case after case, and I won.
While in office, former President Donald Trump built more than 80 kilometers of new border wall, reduced the annual cap on refugee admissions to historic lows, and enforced a policy that separated children from their parents.
This November, the American people are going to compare these records, and they're going to tell Border Czar Harris, you have done a horrible job. You're a disgrace to our country. You're fired. Get out of here. You're fired. Get out.
Immigration is a hot issue in this presidential election. A Chicago Council survey found that 50% of respondents say a large number of immigrants is a threat to the United States, though just over half of Americans support a border wall and the use of American troops at the U.S.-Mexico border. Most oppose mass deportation of undocumented immigrants. With Congress failing to pass immigration reform, the nation remains dependent on executive actions and regulations, regardless of who is in office.
With the political environment we're in, it's a tough place because executive actions are always going to be the subjects of lawsuits, and we have a Congress that's not willing to act.
Harris pledges to support border security legislation, highlighting Trump's role in sinking a bipartisan Senate bill earlier this year.
He tanked the bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him win an election. Which goes to show Donald Trump does not care about border security. He only cares about himself. So here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump killed, and I will sign it into law.
Trump's Republican allies have urged him to focus on areas where they believe he has an advantage over Harris, especially on immigration. He continues to call for the deportation of undocumented migrants and criticizes the Biden-Harris administration for having what he calls an open border policy.
With your vote, inflation will stop. The illegal aliens will be turned back. They're not coming in. We got to stop them. Did you see where she's now saying, oh, we had a very good border. Oh, great. They had the worst border in the history of the world.
The U.S. Border Patrol logged about 130,000 migrant encounters in June, up from about 104,000 in the same month of 2019, Trump's last year before the pandemic, but down from the December 2023 peak of more than 300,000. Elaine Barrows, VOA News, Washington.
Donald Trump's interview with billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk eventually started on Musk's social media platform X Monday evening following a lengthy delay caused by technical problems that kept many users from accessing the live stream. More than 1.3 million people were listening about 45 minutes into the conversation, according to a counter on X. Trump expressed anger that Vice President Kamala Harris has been swapped in for Biden on the Democratic ticket.
We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different.
Yeah.
Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way or we can do it the hard way.
Who is backing Trump lauded his bravery during the attempt on his life on July 13th when his ear was struck by a bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump said he plans to return to Butler, Pennsylvania, the site of the attack, for a rally in October. Talks to end Sudan's 16-month war between the army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces is expected to move forward this week, according to Tom Perriello, the U.S. Special Envoy to Sudan. At the moment, it appears that neither side is seeking a peaceful resolution. The Sudanese army is all but rejecting the invitation to resolve the crisis, while the RSF is continuing its offensives in parts of the country, despite welcoming the U.S. and Saudi initiative. The war has created the world's largest humanitarian crisis, creating famine-like conditions across the country. The talks are set to begin on Wednesday in Geneva, Switzerland.
We will launch these efforts on August 14th with our partners. As I said, we will not be able to do in-person mediated talks with the parties if the parties are not there, even if one party is not there. So if we continue to be in a situation where SAF is not committed to the process, we will draw on the partnerships and consultations that got us here, focus on the international and regional roadmap, working with many of the people who have, countries and multilaterals that have been most intensely engaged in trying to solve this crisis.
The talks are the latest in several international efforts to bring an end to the war in Sudan. Somalia's cabinet has approved a bill that, if confirmed by parliament, will revert the country's election system to the direct right to vote in public political elections and referendums for the first time in decades, and end a process of indirect voting. A government spokesman says the election rules will lead the country to one person, one vote nationally. Meanwhile, Somalia appears to be close to reaching an agreement with neighboring Ethiopia to access one of its ports. Ethiopia, which is landlocked, is said to be considering abandoning an earlier signed agreement with the breakaway Republic of Somaliland. For more perspective on these latest developments, I'm joined live from the United Kingdom by Abdi Fattah Tahir, a research fellow at the Department of Urban Studies and Planning at the University of Sheffield. Mr. Tahir, how significant is this election bill to the citizens of Somalia?
I think at this moment, the elections are not very significant in the sense that it is very difficult to kind of translate the law that that was tabled in the Council of Ministers and would be tabled in Parliament soon, given the fact that, you know, there are the same problems that prevented the same kind of law in 2020 to be materialized into action still remain. The security problems, Al-Shabaab control significant territories in the country. The federal member states also control significant territories, and some of them are not willing to take part in the elections. And also there is lack of comprehensive political settlement in the country, in the sense that there are very strong and very powerful political elites in Mogadishu, without whom it would be very difficult to hold elections.
Now, moving on to the Somalia, Ethiopia and Somaliland deal. First, what changes for Ethiopia? And secondly, if Somalia allows it, that is, to control, to access one of its ports, and then what happens to Somalia and the other deal with Somaliland?
So far, what we know from the talks, there are no face-to-face still meetings between the two sides. And the Ethiopian, the Somali side makes an offer to them first before they repeal the initial MOU. And also they are demanding that, a specific location be given to them, specifically something along the Gulf of Aden. So these are, the Somalia on the side is saying it's like asking, it is like Russia or, America asking for Russia and access to the sea or having a base within, the American territory. So it is almost impossible for that to materialize. What will it mean for Ethiopia, even if it gets this deal? I mean, it will have a greater say in the region, and it will have achieved a long-term ambition of, having an access to the sea by either conquest or by legal means with neighboring territories and neighboring countries. Also, it's good for the local politics in the sense that it will kind of project Abiy Ahmed in a very positive light.
What's in this deal, and where does that leave Somaliland, which was very close to sealing that deal with Ethiopia? Is Somaliland now going to be isolated in these negotiations?
If the process goes ahead and if the agreement is reached between the two sides, then Somaliland will have no alternative other than, finding other ways of engaging the federal authorities, including talks about a possible unification, or maybe for Somaliland to say we want to secede from the rest of the country and we need to have talks about that. So it will force Somaliland to come back to the table and negotiate about the future.
Very quickly, Tahir, what is the deal here? Why is Turkey involved?
The Turkish government, the deal basically is becoming more of like a Turkish deal in the sense that Turkey is very strongly pushing all sides to reach an agreement in the sense that it has a major investment in Ethiopia in the region of about $2 billion, initially 1.2, and there are several increments since then. But it also has stricken a deal with the federal government of Somalia with regards of resource extraction, oil exploration and all of that. So Turkey has very serious economic, ambitions in the region. And in addition to that, just by brokering a deal between two neighboring countries in the Horn of Africa, it kind of projects Turkey as a key player in the geopolitics of the region. So for Turkey, it's very significant for the deal to go through.
Mm-hmm. Abdi Fattah, thank you very much. Abdi Fattah Tahir is a research fellow at the Department of Urban Studies and Planning at the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom and a native of Somalia. Tanzania's main opposition party is demanding the unconditional release of its leaders and young supporters who were detained prior to Monday's banned International Youth Day rally. The Chadema party is accusing Tanzania police of arresting party chairman Freeman Mbowe and his deputy Tundu Lissu, both former presidential candidates, along with the party's Secretary General John Mnyika and more than 400 young party supporters. Police deny making the arrests, but John Mrema, Chadema's Director of Communications and Foreign Affairs, told VOA that police were responsible for detaining the party officials and supporters. Police say Monday's youth event was organized to cause confusion and misinform the public. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come. Due to war, Sudan is facing its worst ever hunger crisis. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, also known as AGOA, provides duty-free access to the United States market.
We are told only part of the story. We lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
In other news, scientists and conservationists in Kenya are sounding the alarm over the killing of elephants with large tusks. Scientists say the elephants were killed by trophy hunters in Tanzania. They say other elephants in the group are in danger if they cross into Tanzania, where hunting is allowed. 5 large tusked elephants were killed in the last 8 months by trophy hunters in northern Tanzania. Sierra Leone's president says Africa can wait no longer to get a bigger voice on the United Nations Security Council, the group's most powerful body. President Julius Maada Bio chaired a council meeting Monday, and he used it to press a long-standing bid for African countries to get more council seats, including 2 permanent and potentially veto-wielding spots. And officials in Cameroon say people are again fleeing towns in western regions as separatists block traffic on the streets, burn vehicles that defy their orders, and abduct and torture civilians for ransom. Rights groups are accusing Cameroon's central government of neglecting and abandoning oppressed civilians. The next time there's a census in the United States, in 2030, Americans who trace their ancestral roots to the Middle East and North Africa will have their own demographic category, Mena. VOA's Genia Dulon went to the Little Arabia neighborhood of Anaheim, California, to see what people think about the change.
Here in California's Little Arabia neighborhood of Anaheim, activists were fighting for a new U.S. Census category, Mena, for Americans who trace their origin to the Middle East and North Africa for over 3 decades. Palestinian-American Aya Shihade says having to check the box white on federal forms has made her feel invisible in American society.
I always didn't feel like I fit in the white box, and so I would always try to check off any other box, either Asian or something else. Now it could finally feel like that we're seen and that it's okay to be Palestinian, it's okay to be Arab.
Mena includes nearly 30 different identities, says Arab American Civic Council Policy and Research Coordinator Amin Nash.
It includes Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, kind of the Arabian Peninsula, all the way till Palestine. And then from Africa, it'll go Egypt, and then all the way north Africa, so Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, all the way to Morocco.
Nash says it often depends on how people see themselves culturally. For example, Israelis who are included in Mena often identify as white because they trace their ancestry to Eastern Europe, whereas Armenians, he believes, should be included in the new category because they often immigrate to the US from the Middle East. Arab American Civic Council Executive Director Rashad Al-Dabakh says the new census category will help Arab Americans better advocate for their needs.
Having our own separate community means that we can have numbers, we can have data. We know how many Middle Eastern, North African folks live in our communities. For us as Arab American Civic Council, it's important when we mobilize people to vote, when we talk to our Congress member, we have data. We can tell them, look, Congress member, we have this many people that live in your district. We're a big community and you should listen to our needs.
Al-Dabakh says the change will make it easier for members of his community to apply for minority business loans, to track civil rights abuses, and to look at how different healthcare issues impact MENA members. Most people here in Anaheim's Little Arabia neighborhood welcome the change. Lebanese-American Tony Hakim does not. Visiting this bakery for traditional Lebanese flatbread, he says the change is more divisive than inclusive.
And what you really want, you want people to start thinking in terms of, I'm an American, I'm here. I don't want to go back to where I came from, because where I came from, I left behind. Now I'm looking forward. Looking forward to me is being in America and being part of the American culture and identifying myself as an American.
The new Mena category will be in place for the next U.S. Census in 2030. Jenya Dulo, VOA News, in the Little Arabia neighborhood of Anaheim, California.
It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest on the Africa CDC's declaration of a public health emergency. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. That's right. The African Union's health agency, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is declaring a public health emergency across the continent. The announcement was made on Tuesday by Africa CDC head Jean Kaseya during an online media briefing. The outbreak is sweeping through several African countries, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to the CDC data, as of August 4th, there has been over 38,000 cases of Mpox and over 1,400 deaths in Africa since January 2022. According to the Africa CDC, the emergency declaration aims to mobilize resources, enhance healthcare systems, and foster collaboration among African nations to effectively address the outbreak. It also seeks to attract international attention and support to bolster the continent's response to this escalating health crisis. The Integrated Food Security Phase classification says Sudan is facing the worst levels of hunger ever recorded in the country, as well as the world's largest internally displaced crisis. There is a significant influx of displaced people as conflict spreads to the town of Sinjar, the capital of Sennar State. Observers say the displacement in Sennar is happening as the rainy season begins, and the poor living and sanitation conditions at IDP camps could lead to disease outbreaks. For more insight, I spoke with Sibongani Kayola, the Sudan country director for Mercy Corps.
The conflict in Sennar State erupted on the 26th of June when armed clashes began between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces in Jebel Moya in Sennar State. In the last 1 month, we've seen that conflict has spread to multiple localities within Sennar State, including Sinjar, Adindar, and other localities, and it has led to large-scale displacement. From the displacement tracking matrix, we've seen that over 136,000 people have been displaced from various locations across Sennar State. And the direction of the displacement, most people are moving east towards the neighboring state of Gadaref. Others are fleeing onwards to Kassala, Red Sea, and others going to River Nile and the Blue and White Nile states. These large movements are really having a heavy impact on the receiving states. The influx of people is straining local resources and infrastructure in the neighboring states that are receiving these displaced people. There are concerns about the poor living conditions and potential disease outbreaks in the sites that are hosting the displaced populations, especially with the start of the rainy season, which we are currently starting. The risk of waterborne and vector-borne diseases increases. There is a lack of basic water and sanitation facilities, and no running water or ablution facilities means a high risk of waterborne diseases.
Given the situation that you described, what are the primary obstacles in providing humanitarian aid and some of the challenges that you have come across?
The biggest challenge at the moment is the ongoing conflict and insecurity. The fighting continues to affect various regions of the country, including Sennar State, which we just talked about, but also multiple states in the Darfur region, as well as the Kordofans. This means that key supply routes have been cut off due to the fighting. Additional challenges are border closures and the weather conditions. So the Adre crossing from Chad is closed, and then the Chad to Darfur crossing via Tine in North Darfur is inaccessible or rapidly becoming inaccessible due to the heavy rains and flooding. brought about by the rainy season. Finally, despite some recent improvements in visa approvals and travel permits for humanitarians, we still continue to see a challenge from bureaucratic and administrative processes. They continue to slow the pace of aid operations.
So how is Mercy Corps adapting its assistance strategies given the challenges in delivering aid?
Well, our work at Mercy Corps is focused on providing immediate assistance to displaced communities, particularly through multi-purpose cash assistance. Cash assistance allows families to address a wide range of needs whilst also helping to support the viability of local markets in the face of the ongoing conflict. And with multi-purpose cash assistance, we can deliver the assistance by working in partnerships with financial service providers in the local markets. So we're able to deliver assistance quite rapidly and don't have to face some of the challenges associated with roadblocks and so on. We are also working with private sector companies to enhance access to agricultural inputs and financial services for farmers. So working with entities who are already present in the localities that we're targeting to be able to deliver assistance via the local market system.
I gather it must have been challenging to see what was happening on the ground. What did you take away from it?
With each passing day, Lenore, the lives of the Sudanese people are getting worse. The humanitarian situation is really worsening. The crisis in Sudan is one of the largest crises that the world has seen over the last few years. 50% of the Sudanese population is in need of humanitarian assistance, so that's approximately 25 million people. 755,000 people are at risk of starvation in the next few months, and we need more attention to this crisis. We need the work of humanitarians to be facilitated. We need more funding as well to reach more people with the assistance that they need.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on X at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports each Tuesday right here on Africa54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.